the belief of possession and things like that. And I'm going to share experiences that are my own. Because I've experienced things from a young age, and they kind of tapered off once I reached a certain age and I stopped experiencing things. I have had a few little things that couldn't be explained as an adult, but it kind of tapered off once I got to adulthood, and I think it's because, as has been stated, younger people are a lot more open to that kind of stuff. So they tend to see, witness, and experience things and are a lot more open. And so, thus, see these entities and hear them and speak to them and everything like that a lot more often because they think they're just a part of their everyday world. They don't understand that this is something separate, that this is something evil, wicked. And so, when I was a young boy, I actually started seeing these things that I myself did not sit there and go, "Oh, this is my buddy, this is my friend." I didn't have those thoughts because they were spooky to me. They they were not something that seemed friendly to me. Um, I remember I was I had to be maybe like 6 or so. We moved into this brick house on a street called Black Cat Road, of all things. Um, and while we were there, um, my parents, or well, the people that raised me, my grandparents actually, um, stayed upstairs. Their room was up there, and then me and my siblings were down in this kind of a basement area. It was pretty much just cement down there. There were lights along the little walkway, hallway, and everything like that that had little pull strings and stuff like that to give a light source. And then in our rooms, we also had little pull strings and everything like that for our lights. But there were no doors. There was no, it was. And when the lights were out, it was extremely, extremely dark down there. And I remember that one night we had shut out the lights. We were down in this little basement area, me and my two sisters. It was extremely dark, and I remember I was awoke to the sound of like shuffling, like someone was coming down the hallway, and it was just this dragging, shuffling sound, like they were dragging their feet, just very, very, very pronounced. And I remember as a child, this scared the ever living fuck out of me, guys. And I was like, what am I hearing? Who's awake? And then I thought, okay, maybe it's one of my sisters, you know. And this is like me trying to rationalize as like a 6-year old child. You know what I mean? And like, I'm hearing this and I'm like, what is going on? Who is this? And so I call out. I'm like, you know, I'm not going to say their names on here. But, anyways, I called out my sister's names. And I was like, guys, is that you? And I got no response. And I remember hearing the noise coming up right outside my door, and it just dead stopped, and it got completely silent. And I go, hello? And I called out my sister's names again. There was nothing. And I remember I pulled my overhead light and I turned it on, and there was no one there. And I looked out into the hallway and everything like that. And because my light fed out enough into the hallway, I was able to go out and hit the hallway one. And that's when I woke my sisters because the lights came on and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I couldn't even explain to them what had just occurred. I couldn't put it into words. And so I just shut off the lights and I apologized and I went back to my room. That was the only time I experienced anything in that house. In that house, that was the only time I ever heard anything or had anything strange happen. Then we moved to another area and we moved into another kind of single story house. And I remember the very first thing that I experienced was I was in, I think, first or second grade. And My grandparents at the time, they both worked the same schedule for their job, and they worked at the same company. They just worked in different areas. And so we would go over to our neighbors down the way and we'd go and play with their children. They had three daughters and everything like that. And we would hang out with them until they came home and they would pick us up and they'd take us home. Well, I remember one day I was playing with one of the girls, um, and we were upstairs. And she showed me that there was this crawl space between the bathroom and the bedroom that was nearby, and it connected. And so we were playing a game where we were, one would hold the door open, the other crawl through, and we were having fun until it stopped being fun. So, see, what happened is on one of my turns, I was standing there, and this is kind of like a spring kind of cupboard door, right? So if you let it go, it closes, right? I'm sitting there, I'm holding this for her. She's crawling through. We're having fun. We're laughing. We're giggling. It was an enjoyable experience and everything like that. And all of a sudden, it felt like something pulled the door from my hand. And it shut, and I could not open it. I'm not bullshitting you. This is very real. This is something I actually experienced. I could not, for the life, open it. And mind you, I'm a young kid. And I'm trying to get her out of there. She's screaming, she's crying, she can't get out. She tried to backtrack and go the other way, and she couldn't get out. Well, her grandmother ends up hearing this, and she comes up. And as soon as she comes up, she's able to just open the door right away. And she scolds me, says that I was being mean and cruel. I was like, I didn't do anything. Well, needless to say, after that, we were not allowed back. So then my grandparents ended up changing their schedules to where one would be home and the other would be working, and vice versa, depending on who was there. So the next experiences I heard my sisters talk about, um, because so our kind of layout of our houses, I had a room with an older stepbrother, and then my two sisters shared a room, and we all had bunk beds. I was on the top and everything like that, and respective, my stepbrother was down below. Well, I remember my sisters telling me that they kept seeing this shadow, like a person was standing outside their window. And they always kept their blinds closed, but they would see this shadow there, like someone was staring. Now, I am not denying that this very well could be a real person that was standing outside their window. I am not denying that. But the reason I think that it wasn't is because they would pull the string really quick and there would be nobody outside their window. That's pretty freaky. When you see this shadow standing there, there's clearly someone in the center of the thing, and you can clearly see through from the street lights out that there is a person or something there, a shadow. And then they throw this open and there's nothing there. That's pretty freaking freaky, guys. Well, my next experience that I experienced myself, I remember there was a night I was extremely restless. I could not sleep. And I remember we would keep our doors open because we didn't want them, because they would kind of creak. The place was kind of old that we had moved into. So when we'd open our doors, it could possibly wake others and stuff like that. So we just kept our doors open. So when we had to go to the bathroom or go get a drink or whatever from the kitchen, we could just go out. Well, I remember one night I was really restless and I rolled over onto my left side and I looked at the doorway and there were these two, it's hard to describe what they were, almost like beings of light. There was one that was really, really like almost kind of like a dark color that was very diffused. It barely moved. And the other one was extremely bright. And that one kept kind of like coming closer and then backing away. And it kept doing this. And the other one just kind of sat there and it was a very diffuse dark color. And I remember I kept just watching it. And this one that was really bright kept getting closer and then backing away, getting closer, backing away. And I finally got scared when it got like right up on me. And I like covered my head, typical child style with the blanket and everything like that. Well, then, shortly thereafter, my older stepbrother that I shared a room with started acting really, really strange. He would start getting up in the middle of the night. And I remember he would get up and he would go out into the hallway, and very strange, he would scrape his nails along the wall and he would head down to the kitchen. And I would hear him rummaging through the drawers of the kitchen. And I was like, what could he possibly be doing? And I would hear these drawers getting opened and slammed shut. And I was like, what is he doing? Well, then he would come back to the room and he would do this nightly. And it was always very, very strange. Well, I remember one day, me and my sister, we were in second grade at the time. Me and my sister came home. We sat on the couch thinking it was going to be a normal day. And the only other person at the time that was home was my step grandfather, who was down in his room. And me and my sister were sitting there watching cartoons. My older stepbrother comes passing through from the front door and he crosses in front of us and he goes into the kitchen. And I hear him start rummaging through the drawers again in the kitchen. And I'm like, what is he doing? Well, then I remember he passed in front of me again and my sister. And it looked like he had what was like blocks in his hands of wood. And I was like, that can't be right. What? It wasn't until he came back inside that I realized he was holding two kitchen knives, one in each hand. And he started to head down the hallway towards where my step grandfather was. Well, my step grandfather and my grandmother are the ones that raised me, so I called them my parents. So I screamed out, Dad, because I perceived the threat. Well, he comes out and he sees my older stepbrother, and he starts fighting with him, right? Trying to wrench the knife from him. Because he only saw one. He didn't see that he had two knives. He only saw the one. Well, now, my step grandfather was ex military. He actually almost went into the special forces, but he wasn't allowed to move forward with going into it because he had already started a family previously with my step siblings and his ex wife. Anyways, he sees my stepbrother with weapon, right? He sees one knife and he's able to grab his wrist and he wrenches the knife free from his hand and then sees the second knife a little too late. He was just able to put up his hand and he caught the blade in the flesh between his thumb and his forefinger. And it was at this point, with the knife in his hand like that, that he was able to wrestle that one free from my brother as well. And he was able to take my brother down to the ground. Luckily, he had been on a call with my grandmother during the time that this happened. And so when he heard me cry out, he said something's wrong and he hung up. And so my grandmother called the police. And so they showed up and they ended up arresting my stepbrother. Um, he did time in juvenile hall and everything like that. So, now moving forward with other experiences and things like that of the supernatural and everything like that, because I do believe that he was possessed. I do. It was just so off. His whole behavior was just wrong. My stepbrother, like he never behaved like that before. He completely changed. So moving forward, a few years later, um, I we ended up getting a two-story house, right? We had it built, um, so we were kind of in limbo for a while in this smaller place while we were having our place built. It was built on this big dirt lot, and didn't really look into anything about the place, didn't know what it was, but we just knew that it was in this kind of religious neighborhood. And we're like, okay, well, my family having been religious, they were like, okay, well, we're gonna move in here, da 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 da. And so we had this place built. Well, I remember I just always had a strange feeling when I was in the place. I never felt quite right. I always felt like something was off, and even being kind of into like I think at the time I was like maybe 9, 10 years old at this point. I remember I hated being in the dark, especially in this place. This place, like, I just never felt like I was quite safe. I always had this feeling like I was being watched, like there was something there. And I remember my stepsister, who was a year older than me, started behaving really, really strangely herself. And I remember there was a night where I had my door open and everything like that because we had these like rope lights in the hallway, so that fed light into my room. So I didn't have this strong fear as much, you know? Well, I remember one night, and this is exactly how it played out. My stepsister, who was kind of kitty corner roomed to me, like hers was right there. Like I would step out and theirs was right there. Kind of just. My stepsister, I'm not shitting you, comes walking out almost in like a sleepwalk daze, stark ass naked, stands in my doorway and stares like with her eyes closed. It was weird. She just stood there like she was staring me down with her eyes closed, almost like in a sleepwalker state. Never had done this before, by the way. This was totally new behavior. And then slowly turns and walks down the hallway, and I could hear them head down the staircase. And they get to the kitchen, and everything else was really, really mundane. Like I hear like the water from like the fridge and everything like that and stuff like that, and then I hear them come back up the stairs, and they stand in my doorway again, like they're staring at me. And I remember I just had this just like overwhelming sense of like dread, like something bad was going to happen. And then they just went back into their room. And nothing more ever really came of that. But how disconcerting is that? Can you imagine like how that would feel like if someone from your family just did that? Like they just come out and they're just completely like stark naked, just standing in your doorway staring at you. Like that's really, really strange, guys. Well, sometime later we ended up losing the house, the place, and everything like that, right? And we ended up moving into a smaller place. Um, by this point, I was in high school, and I remember I had made a friend. His name was Jared. Um, that's all you're gonna get from name wise. And he had kind of a bigger property with his family. They had their initial property that they actually lived on, but then there was like an extended part of it that was actually land that they owned. That was kind of like this little field, and they were farmers. Um, and there was this little house that had been built way back when that was on the property that had the field and everything like that. And I remember he calls me and he goes, "Hey man, I've got these girls and everything like that that want to mess around with a Ouija board." And I remember immediately thinking, I'm like, dude, I've already experienced so much weird shit. I don't want to deal with the Ouija board. But then he's like, dude, we've got two of the most popular girls going to be there. You have to show up. And I was like, my teenage mind was like, I have to show up, right? So I go there. We're sitting in this small little house, and he pulls out the board, and we start asking it questions. And I remember he asked, the simple thing, "What's your name?" It spelt out Mary. I was like, okay, interesting. So then we started asking it little things, how long have you been here? And it basically just told us that it had been there a long time. It didn't give us an exact time frame. It didn't tell us for how long it had, been around. It just said a long time. And so we kept kind of pressing it and asking it more and more questions. And It started getting more creepy. We asked it, well, why do you linger here? And it started getting really, really freaky. It started saying things like malice, vengeance, and then I remember it just spelt out blood, and it would not stop with that. It repeated. And I remember I finally had enough, and I was like, dude, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And I left. Now, this story is going to sound really, really sensational, and I know how it sounds. And I assure you, it is 100% true. This is how it played out. This is how it happened to a T. I was home after this, after he dealt with the board and everything like that, and my phone at about 11, maybe a little after 11:05, 11:10, somewhere around there, starts going crazy. Just vibrating like crazy because I always keep my phone on vibrate. Um, and I remember I saw that it was him. And so I answered. I go, dude, what's up? And he goes, dude, stuff is going on at my house after I messed with that board. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, I need you to get over here. Can you get over here now? And I go, I'll do what I can, man, but I got to sneak out because I was a teenager, right? I couldn't just leave whenever I wanted. And so he goes, dude, just, I don't care. Just get over here. You got to get over here. So I proceed to sneak out, climb out my window, hop the fence. I get to his place. And he said for me not to go to the front door because he was not downstairs. He said he was upstairs. He's like, you gotta figure a way. And well, luckily, cause he was a farmer, he had a ladder. So I took this ladder and I actually climbed the ladder up to the second story. And I got to his window. And I remember I'm sitting outside the window and I rap on the window with my knuckle. And there's no response. No response. I'm like, dude, where is he? He said he was up here. I knock again. And this fool nearly fucking made me fall off the roof because he comes rushing up and he's all of a sudden like right there. Scared the daylights out of me, right? Well, he opens up the window and he goes, dude, get in here, get in here. So I crawl through the window and he shuts it. And we're sitting there just at the side of his bedroom door. And he's like, dude, listen. And so I start listening and I'm hearing these sounds that I can clearly tell are coming from downstairs. And it sounds like stuff's moving, like stuff's scraping around. And I go, dude, what the fuck is that? Is someone in your house? And he goes, as far as I know, no. And I'm like, well, something is because something's moving your stuff around, dude. And so I remember he had his different baseball bats because he played baseball for a while. And he took one and he handed me another. And he goes, dude, we got to go down there. We got to see what's going on. And his parents weren't here. They were off doing something. I think they were at some kind of like convention thing or something. I don't remember, but they were not home. And so we're sitting there, we're moving about and everything like that. And he goes, all right, I'm going to head down that way and everything like that. You stay on me, stay with me and everything like that. So we start moving. We get to the stairwell and we're moving down. We're taking it like step by step, guys. Like, because we keep hearing these sounds and we're like, what the hell is this? Now, we get down to the main landing on the bottom floor and he had like a full body mirror. They had one there for when like they were heading out so they could see, you know, how they looked and everything like that. They were kind of vain people. But anyways, I remember as we were going by, this thing just slipped its hook. And it hits the ground and it was enough of a jarring that it actually broke the glass. It like spider webbed it. And I remember it scared the shit out of us. And I go, dude, how did it do that? And he goes, what do you mean? It just the hook probably like came out. And I'm like, nah, dude, your hook's still in the wall. It just came off. And he's like, no, dude, there's no way, blah da 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 da. And I was like, look. And so he looks and he goes, dude, there's no fucking way. I was like, I don't get it. But yeah, it's fucking weird, man. Well, then we move over to where his like family's dining area was. And this is where he's like, he just kind of froze. And I go, what? He goes, we don't stack our chairs on the table like that. And I go, what? And he points and he goes, we don't stack our chairs on the table like that. We don't do that. And I look, and all of the chairs are stacked upside down, resting on his tabletop, all the way around his family table. And I go, your family doesn't do this? And he goes, no. And he's like, you think that's what we were hearing? I was like, probably then. Well, then he tells me, dude, we got to go down to the very last landing. Because technically, the bottom floor wasn't quite the bottom floor. There was like a sub section that had like a smaller little area down below that was not quite a full landing floor. It was a smaller little area. And so he's like, we got to go down there. We got to look. So we moved past, and I remember we're kind of going down like these last three steps to this smaller little area of his house. And there is like a little cubby door there that's under the stairs. So there's actually like a storage there. Kind of think like Harry Potter a little bit. It's exactly the same style thing, but this had more of an officiated kind of door and everything. We go down past that and we're looking, and I remember as we come around, there's kind of like a little like open area that they kind of used as like a partial study and gaming kind of area. We're coming around and there so this part of the house is technically down underground a little bit. So there's actually like a window where you can see out the window, and there's only like this much that you actually see out into the backyard. And then the rest is grass down below. You literally see the dirt in the grass because it's actually down under in the ground. And I remember I come around and I'm following him, and we each have our respective like aluminum baseball bats, right? Because we're ready to fight something because we were hearing things in the house. And I shit you not, as we come around and I'm following him in that window with just that little sliver of the outside, I see a woman's face. And I like dead stop and I go, what the fuck? And he goes, what? And when I look back, there was nobody there. And he goes, dude, what? And I go, I just saw a woman. She was looking in through the window. And he goes, what? And I was like, yeah. And so he's like, dude, we got to go look. And so we rush out and we throws open the freaking slide door and everything like that. And we go out there. Of course, there's nobody out there, right? That's just how it always is, right? You experience this shit and then there's nobody there. And it really gets in your head, guys. I'll tell you that. Like when someone's clearly there that you see and then all of a sudden they just disappear, it's really freaking freaky. Well, skipping forward in time a little bit, I had graduated high school. Yeah. And my way of getting out of the house quickly and everything like that is I moved in with my friend Molly and her family and everything like that. So I would be away from my family and I could kind of start my life and everything like that and do my thing on my own. So I moved into this place with them, and they also have a kind of a it's it's hard to describe because these houses are kind of strange layouts. They're technically two-story, but they have like a third floor that's a smaller little layout. You go down, it's like a little living room, and then they've got like a bedroom there that has its own bathroom and everything like that. But it's not technically a full floor like the other two floors are. Yes. So I move in. I have my room next to the gaming room that Molly and I shared, and then her room was across from mine, and then next to her room was the bathroom. I started kind of making it a habit at night because I was very restless. I did not sleep well because it was new surroundings and stuff like that. I would get up, I would go down, and I would make myself a nightcap, and then I would go to sleep. Well, I remember there was one night I had just finished it off. I would rinse the glass, I put it into the sink, and I come around the corner and I head towards like the staircase that I would have to go up to head to my room. At the top of the stairwell was a woman, and I thought it was Molly, my friend, because she had dark hair and everything like that. I very much thought it was my friend. And so I thought I had been caught because I wasn't supposed to be getting into the liquor cabinet and everything like that. And so I started making up excuses. I was like, oh, I just couldn't rest. I just needed something to kind of snack on and everything like that. And I'm like, I'll be going to bed. And they stood there for a second and everything like that. And I don't remember why I looked away. I think I was pointing to what I was trying to make up my alibi. And I like turned and I was pointing in the kitchen to what I was supposedly doing. And when I turned back, they weren't there. And so I just assumed that Molly kind of believed my story and just went back to bed. And so I remember I headed back up and I went into my room and I went to sleep. And the next day, when I was hanging out in the little gaming room and everything like that that we kind of both shared and used, she came in the next morning and I go, hey, I'm sorry if I woke you last night, you know. And she kind of gets this quizzical look on her face. And she goes, I didn't get up last night. And I went, yeah, you did. I saw you standing at the top of the stairwell. And she just got this kind of like surprised look on her face, and her face went just pale. And I go, what? And she's like, you saw her. And I go, saw who? She goes, the dark haired woman. And I go, I thought it was you. She goes, no, I've been seeing her since I was a little girl. And she goes, she's never done anything. She's just always there. She just kind of stands there like she's lost. And I remember we saw her a couple more times after that. She saw her a couple times, like in the bathroom, like when she would be like showering or something. She said like she would see at the corner because like the curtain didn't. I don't know why they didn't just buy a new curtain, but their shower curtain didn't go all the way down to the end. It stopped, so there was like a sliver of like space at the end. And she said a couple times while she was showering, she would see this woman there. And she said at first it scared her. And I mean, it scared me too when I saw this lady after that, after she told me that it wasn't her that I was seeing and everything like that. And I was just seeing this random woman with dark hair. It scared me a couple times. But then I started realizing that she wasn't menacing. She wasn't doing anything. She was just kind of there. You know what I mean? Like she would just kind of stand there. And she never seemed like she was a threat. She never seemed like anything that was kind of like going to harm me or anything. All right. So, after those experiences, my family got in contact with me. My mom and my real dad and everything like that. They got in contact, and they said they wanted to meet me. So I went, and I ended up moving in with my dad. And I remember um, he would talk to me over shots, right? And now you could probably explain this one away to being that I was maybe a little bit drunk and stuff like that. I haven't been 19 and everything like that, and drinking and not really being like super like into it. Because we'd sit there and we'd take shots as he'd ask me questions. Excuse me. And I remember there was a time where I was sitting there and we were talking, and I saw a woman in the background, and not directly behind my dad, but like behind the glass of the sliding back door. And she was there for just a moment, and then it was like she turned and walked to the side, like she just, you know. And I remember I was like, yo, somebody's in the house. And I remember like my dad got like immediately up in arms and was like, what? And he turns and he heads inside and he's looking around and he's like, and then I remember he comes up with this grin on his face and he's like, buddy, I think you're getting a little drunk. And he actually escorted me over to his couch and had me lay down. He's like, you need to get some rest. And I'm like, all right. And so, like, then a little bit later, um, and she doesn't actually know this part of the story, my sister, but I actually had more siblings that were in the state that I ended up moving to with these guys. So I actually have a pretty big family. But my other sister, she came and she was staying a little while at my dad's place and everything like that because she wanted to meet me. She had never met me. I was meeting family that I didn't know about. And we'd all kind of been hanging out and everything like that. And I remember we were kind of sitting around and we were taking shots and we were all talking to each other and everything like that. And I remember it got late. My dad goes, all right, guys, I don't want you guys getting totally shit faced and everything like that because we're sitting here taking shots. So we go and lay down and everything like that. My sister started acting strange. I actually woke up and she was standing over me. And it was like she was staring me down. But like before with my other sister, she had her eyes shut like she was sleeping. Now, this could be coincidence. They both could be sleepwalkers. But the fact that it happened with my stepsister prior only one time and then this one, like, just it just seems so odd. It just seems like not that many people sleepwalk. It's not a common thing, guys. It's really not. People make it seem so in like films and stuff, but not very many people actually do it. It's a very rare thing to actually get up and move around and do things when you are in a sleep state. That is very rare. Now, she started acting very, very strange. I remember there was a couple times I would hear her actually heading off and she would be doing things. And I would wake up and I'd see her heading down the hall and doing different things. Now, she never got violent. She never did anything like my stepbrother did. Thank God. Because I wouldn't know what I would do in that situation. This is my younger sister. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want to have to deal with a situation like that. But I remember there was a night she woke me up. We were sleeping because this was kind of like a. It's kind of hard to describe. So it was like a. Think like if you had like a bunch of like couches that made like a square, we had like half that. Yes. And so she was sleeping on one section, I was sleeping on the other. And I remember I woke up to a strange noise and I heard like this shuffling. And I look over and she's laying there and she's literally like starting to lift like the top she was wearing. And I remember this actually caused like a huge fight between her, I, and our dad for like years. Trying to be modest, I came over and I tried to like pull her shirt back down. This is when she decided to snap awake, by the way. She thought I was doing the adverse. She thought I was doing the opposite. And for years, this caused a huge rift between us and everything like that. Finally, that's been fixed and we've talked it out, and I've explained that there was some weird shit going down and everything like that, and I was just trying to help her stay and be modest. But then After that, I ended up leaving. I couldn't stay around my dad's anymore because he just couldn't remember anything. He was asking me any questions, any things. He wasn't learning anything because he was getting drunk every night. When we would finish doing our shots and questions and everything like that, he would finish the bottle. And this was nightly. He was bringing stuff home from his job. So I moved in with my mom, met my brothers, all four of them, and I remember I went around and everything like that. One day I was by myself. My brothers were all out with their friends, hanging out at the mall and stuff like that. My mom, I think she was shopping somewhere. I think she had went down the way or whatever and she was shopping, but I was by myself. I had been playing video games all day and I was like, you know what, I'm bored. And so I went and I decided for whatever fucking reason I was going to start taking pictures of the place because I had seen different things that didn't make sense about our apartment because we were staying in an apartment. Like the fact that our door was green and everybody else's was white. The fact that there was clearly a bullet hole in the second pane of our window and different things like that. So I started going around and I started taking pictures of the things around the house. And then that just turned into taking pictures of the whole freaking place. Because I found a way to entertain myself. And so I went around and I started doing this. Well, a couple of them stood out to me. So I had taken one at the doorway of the bathroom that all of my brothers shared, being the younger people of the house. Me and my mom, we shared the other bathroom, which was the main kind of bathroom and everything like that. That was the one that we utilized because we were the adults. Yes? Well, I stood in the doorway and I took a photo from the doorway. And so you could see from there to the back where the shower was and everything like that. Well, when I looked back at this photo later, there was what looked like a figure of light under the shower head with like disconnected like joints and stuff like that. None of its like different parts of it were like connected in like one way, but like you could see what was supposed to look like arms and stuff. And it looked like a figure like showering, like they were like it was really strange. And then another one was I stood at one end of the hallway and I took a photo down the hallway. And it looked like, when I looked back at the photo, like it looked like a figure and like a cloak. And you could only see so far down, and you could not really see defined legs or anything like that. And so I remember I shared these with my mom, and I was like, should I show the we called them the boys because they were younger, my brothers. And I was like, should I show the boys? And she goes, you can, but they probably aren't going to want to come home. Well, me being me, I decided to share. So I showed them, and sure enough, none of them came home for a good 2 weeks. They'd come home real quick during the day. They'd grab things they needed and they'd go back to their friends. They stayed at friends and other places for 2 weeks straight because they did not want to come back there. Well, then things started getting really, really strange. I remember I had just got, what was it? I'm trying to think of what the game was at the time. I think it was like Skyrim or something. I was playing something that was new and exciting at the time as a game on the 360, yeah. And I remember it was late night. It was getting around like 3 in the morning. And I heard someone whisper behind me simply just this: "Hi." I dropped my controller and I started looking around like, who the fuck is talking to me? Because everybody had, supposedly, my brothers had been in bed. My mom was the only other person awake, but she was down the hall in her room. And so I start looking around, thinking, okay, maybe one of my little brothers is up and awake, and trying to fuck with me and everything like that, watching me game and stuff like that, just thinking that they're being funny. So I go and check. And one brother, he was older than the others by a few years. Um, Checked on him, he was out cold. Then I checked on the other three, they were all sacked out. So I'm like, the hell? So I go and I sit back down. I start playing again, and I get to the point where I kind of forgot all about it. I was so engrossed in the game. Then, even closer and a little louder, once again, simply, hi. I turn and I look. Nobody there. So, I decide that I'm going to go and I turn on the light that is over the dining area of the apartment because there wasn't an actual like overhead light for the living room. I turned that on, and that actually kind of flooded enough light into the room that I was like, okay, it's good, it's not that bad and everything like that. And I was like, I can see a little better now. So if someone is being a little shit, I knew that I could see them. So I go back to gaming and everything like that. I'm carrying on, and maybe like 30, 40 minutes go by, and then I hear it again. And this time it's like someone is literally right there next to my ear. And they just very, very softly just go, hi. I jumped up. I booked it down that hallway. I went and I sat next to my mom on her bed, and I was like, she was on the phone with someone, and she hangs up and she goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, someone keeps whispering hi to me out in the living room, and all of the boys are asleep. And she just gets this look on her face, like she didn't quite believe me, but she wanted to calm me down. You know what I mean? And she goes, all right, we'll stay here. She could see that I was like really freaked out. And she goes, hang out here for a little bit until you feel better. And da 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 da. And I remember I stayed and I ended up like falling asleep. And I woke up some time later and it was lighter out. So then I headed back out to the living room and I continued gaming. But then the next things are kind of, some of these are a little bit mix of like what my mom told me as well as what I experienced, and some of them are a little bit mixture of both. So one day, my mom said that when me and my brothers were all out and she was by herself, she was trying to help with my unpacking because I had a lot of boxes and things that we got the essential things that I needed, my clothes and stuff, but I hadn't unpacked my other things that were just personal little effects of mine and stuff like that. So she was trying to be nice and she was doing this herself. So she started unpacking things and she was setting things around the room and doing whatever. Well, I had like this little LED base that spun and it had LEDs in it and it had like a little glass thing that it sat on, and then it had like this rectangular glass thing that had an etching of a dragon going towards a moon inside of it, right? And so the LEDs would shine into that and you'd see that kind of like light up with the different colors and everything like that, and it would spin. I had this. She had set it up on the windowsill, and this is a wide windowsill, by the way, and she pushed it back up to the glass, so she was like, okay, it's not going to fall, it's not going to break, things like that. She said that during the time that she was finishing up with the boxes and everything like that, and she was pulling things out, this thing somehow fell and hit the floor and it broke. And I remember I came home and I was extremely pissed about this. I didn't listen to what she was telling me. I was so mad because I lost something that I really loved. But this should not have been able to fall. It should not have been able to move. And so this thing to have come forward and fallen and hit the floor and broke was just unexplainable. And so I remember um, I finally decided to listen to her, and I was like, okay, yeah, that is weird. You're not the only person, that's had weird stuff happen. So I started believing her. Well, then another one was that I experienced was we were out. Me and my brothers were sitting in front of the Xbox. We were all trading off gaming. We were playing different stuff together. Um, we were doing like I think it was like Call of Duty or something. We were playing against each other, and whoever lost would have to swap out with one of the other brothers, right? My mom was in the kitchen. She was making breakfast. And she had everything on low and was kind of just letting things kind of just sit there and simmer and everything like that until she was ready to plate it. And she said she had to run off to the bathroom and she'd thrown it on low. And she asked me to keep an eye on it and not let it burn and everything like that, which I totally forgot about it up to a certain point. And I remember I lost and I sat there and I was like, oh shit, I gotta go check on that. I went into the kitchen and I shit you not, everything was plated. All the food was plated. And I was like, what the hell? And so then the very last thing that was experienced that I can recall, except for here, I'll tell you a couple things about the place I'm living in currently that I've experienced. The very last thing for that place was that my mom was using the bathroom, right? And she said she heard her bedroom door creak because it always made like this kind of like it was very like not the dramatic noise that you hear in like horror movies that like nothing like that, but it did creak. It was a kind of a high creaking noise. It was like you know she heard that, so she assumed that I came into the room either looking for her or needing the bathroom because we shared a bathroom. And then she heard what was like a knock, like someone knocked on the bathroom door. Assuming it was me, she goes, "Hun, I'll be out in a second." And she sits there, she continues doing her thing and everything like that, and then she hears it again. It's a little more insistent. She goes, "I'll be right out." She's starting to get flustered because this keeps happening, right? And as it continues, she finally snaps and she goes, "I said I'll be out." Well, then she finishes up and everything like that, and she opens the door. I'm not there. And actually, the crazy thing is, and I know this part because I experienced this, I was coming down the hallway to head to the bathroom as she was leaving. And that's when she caught me and she goes, "Were you just down there knocking on the door?" And I was like, "No, why?" And she goes, "Because someone was knocking on the bathroom door." And I was like, "Oh, hell no, I'll use the bathroom at the Vancouver Mall." So, but anyways, so now the things that I've experienced here where I live currently. So there's been a couple deaths. Yes, there is a sister that was lost. That was my girlfriend's, and then she also lost a husband that died previous. So they still kind of are wandering around. They're still around in the house, we believe. We've heard footsteps. I have seen figures, not quite defined, um, but I see them out of my peripheral on occasion. I've seen one time directly, and it looked like a woman. This was at like night. I was heading into the bathroom, and I hadn't quite turned on the light yet, and I could clearly see that there was what appeared to be a woman standing there. And then I threw on the light, and no one was there, of course. Um, but overall, that's really the only things I've experienced here is like I hear the footsteps, and then I have seen either someone out of the corner of my eye or the one woman that was standing in the bathroom before I threw on the light at night. And so, anyways, I hope this is interesting. I hope that when this goes up and everybody can kind of like watch this at their leisure and everything like that, that you guys share your experiences. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to hear what you guys have experienced and what has happened to you, and if you have any crazy stories and crazy things that have happened to you, because I've had a lot of weird things. I'm sure I've missed some. Honestly, I've had so many. But anyways, I love y'all. Hope y'all are having a great day, and please share. I would love to hear your guys' experiences and stories. All right, love y'all. Check the stripper out. Damn, I was on there a fucking near hour.